All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining me today. As the founder and CEO of ClickBid, I have a long history with the software and great respect for the work you guys are doing. So I appreciate you sharing your time and insights with everyone today about hybrid events.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So do you want to tell me a bit about yourself and your connection to nonprofit events and how you got involved in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So uh, goes back to 2002 and even a little bit before. My career was really revolved around website design, film and video production, and I uh, worked a lot with nonprofits. I'd helped start a nonprofit, a mentoring organization with a friend of mine. I loved the opportunity to work in the nonprofit sector. And then in some of that work, I partnered with a hospice group to help them take their silent auction event to the next level. They asked me to do a electronic. Was there any way to do an electronic auction? Was what they asked. Now in 2002, that was CRT monitors, keyboards, mice with cords on them,
Yeah.
pedestals, and about a mile of internet cable. So we pulled it off. We had about 12 or so workstations so that people could bid on.
Mhm.
And really from there, fast forward a bunch of years and a bunch of technology later, we now have the ability, obviously, to do these events from home, from our phones, from 30,000 feet, anytime, anywhere in between. So yeah, it's been an awesome journey, and it's really great to still be, after all these years, working with nonprofits.
Yeah, I love that you started really to see the technology transform over the past 20 plus years. And I think at that time we were still doing telethons primarily and radiothons. And, we weren't really much on the internet space of fundraising like we are today. So that had to have been a very interesting transformation to watch.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was, really Steve Jobs in 2008 really made our company when he introduced the iPod Touch.
Mhm.
And so, in 2007, I did events with volunteers walking around with heavy laptops with heavy batteries. And in 2008 or nine, I think, when I gave the same volunteers from the previous year an iPod Touch, I think they hugged me because they
Yeah.
said this is so much nicer to
Yeah.
help people bid and to help people participate in an auction because they didn't have to carry around this massive laptop. So yeah, it was, that was a that was one of the many milestones that we had in the technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I carried around the laptop brick, so I can appreciate that as well. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So things changed drastically during COVID. All of a sudden, every nonprofit that was not involved in technology related fundraising was swiftly thrown into it and had to learn on the fly. And, hybrid, not even hybrid, but completely virtual events were the thing. I don't know any nonprofit that didn't go down that path. Um, Now, today, some of my clients, I'm seeing them do hybrid events. And then some are doing 100% in person. They, are going back to what they know and really want to get back to that personal connection. So, what have you seen in terms of trends in the fundraising space in the past year or so that many nonprofits are doing? Are they doing both? Are they going back in person completely? What are you seeing?
Well, it's a great question. COVID, obviously, we forced nonprofits into a virtual world to embrace technology that they were still, struggling to see the value in, from paper to electronic auctions. And of course, we had to pivot within, days instead of months. And so, we found a partner online that would allow, excuse me, we found a partner online that would allow us to broadcast video with no delay. And, in our world, that's really, really important. Unlike with, downloading a movie from Netflix or Amazon. So yeah, so we partnered with an organization that allowed us to broadcast video at almost zero delay. A lot like, Zoom or Microsoft Teams. you could allow an auctioneer to call an auction from a conference room, and people from their phones at their homes could bid in real time against each other.
Hmm.
So that was, that was an incredible opportunity, especially because, we know that live auction items tend to raise more money than silent auction items do. And when you give people the option to do that, then, you'll raise more money, but you need a certain number of things. You have to have a good auctioneer. You have to have the ability to work in real time back and forth, that real time communication, not just consuming information like downloading a movie or that kind of thing, or watching a YouTube video. You actually have to participate. You have to give information back to the organization. So that really helped keep organizations raising money. And then also paddle raise, organizations could, still do their traditional paddle raises. So we did a lot of the things that nonprofits were comfortable with,
Hmm.
but we brought them online. And so now when organizations are definitely, what we're seeing is organizations have definitely gone back to in-person events. That is, by and large, the vast majority. However, during the pandemic, we found that charities were still raising the same amount of money. The number of bids being placed in the auctions was the same.
Hmm.
Uh, the in fact, some of them were even more, and dollars raised were even more. And then when you take into consideration the fact that costs were lower because of online venues, we call them virtual venues, are much cheaper than
Yes.
the four walls that you rent at the hotel or the conference center in your local community. But now that we're back into those in-person events, we still have, even in the best of times, people who can't attend. I'm double booked. I'm out of town. I don't even live in the city that I support this charity anymore. I've moved. And so I still want to be involved. And we have that technology. We introduced it to nonprofits in 2020. Now we can make it available just like you do today in room with projectors. So you have an AV team in the back. They do all their video. They geek out with all their video stuff, and they put their screens up. You're doing the exact same thing, but you're putting a screen on the internet, and then you're making that screen available to anybody who is in a hotel room, for a business trip on the other side of the country, or they're catching this at their kids national championship. They're catching a little bit of the program. And so you're broadcasting everything that you were already broadcasting. You're just putting it on a much bigger screen, figuratively speaking. And because we have that real-time technology available to us today, you can have people participate in live auctions, fund a need, as if they were in the room in real time. So it's an incredible technology. It gives, even again, in the best of times that people can't get to your event, it lets you expand beyond your ballroom. So it is a huge opportunity that I'm hopeful that people in the nonprofit community will see the value of it. It's
Hmm.
not expensive at all. It's very easy, and you're already hiring an AV team to help you out with your in-person event. Doing this is really nothing, and the impact is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I just hosted an event this past weekend actually, and we did a hybrid, and people came in person in Rochester, Michigan, and we had people from literally all over the entire globe that joined us virtually. And so we had Siberia and Argentina and Italy and people from all over the world that wanted to see that programming, and they would have been completely left out if it had not been for the hybrid opportunity to share and engage with them. And so there's so much value at expanding your audience and meeting people who can't come in person. And, I think the list of benefits are endless if people can get it down. The one thing I've seen, an in-person event, like you said, it's pretty expensive. Like anyone in fundraising knows, in-person events are not the most cost-effective way to raise money, but we also know they're crucial to donor relationships and introducing new people to your mission. And I think that's why we continue to do them in the fundraising space. I've seen that there's been a little bit of hesitation with the hybrid side because people think it's really expensive bringing in an AV team and paying for live streaming and some of those components that I think a lot of us just don't understand. in terms of execution at an event. Can you give us a little bit of maybe the keys to success or the wisdom, behind the scenes on how to make it work well and be cost effective at the same time?
Yeah, that's a really, really good observation. I in all of my career, in creating ClickBid and working with nonprofits, I've kind of tried to live by the crazy simple idea that if it's crazy simple, you can use it and you will use it.
Hmm.
The other analogy that I use a lot around the office is we need to put the cookies on the lower shelf so that everybody can get access to them, or else nobody can enjoy them.
Hmm.
And so the same is true with video streaming. As soon as you say hybrid or you say broadcasting, it's almost like, you know, this wall goes up
Hmm.
of, I can't possibly understand this. Um, and so what we say is, okay, you're doing your in-person event at the most basic level. You have your AV team in the back of the room that's setting up what we call image magnification or IMAG, or the camera person in the back who is pointed at the stage and they're putting it up on two big TVs.
Hmm.
All of that's being done, and you've paid for the AV team to do that. That's a cost that's already been assigned, a line item. And what they're doing is all this magic. They're taking the video and they're stitching it all together and they're sending it to two screens. All we need to do to make this available to anybody at home is have a laptop and a cable that plugs into it, like a web camera, and a web page that, you will give you a web page, and you press a button that says start, and anything that's coming into that computer is sent out to the web for anybody to watch at the event. And we usually recommend, if the doors open at 6, the program starts at 7:30, 8 o'clock, send a message to anybody who can't attend that the online program starts at 8 o'clock. We don't need to broadcast everybody eating dinner, standing in
Right.
line, talking, all that. We want to broadcast the program. When the director gets up to give you an update, you're again, this is all about engagement. We want to engage people. And so while they're waiting for the program to start, they can be bidding on the silent auction from their phone. Again, imagine me in a hotel across the country on a business trip.
Hmm.
My meetings are over. I'm watching this on my phone or my laptop, and I'm bidding in the silent auction. It's 8 o'clock. I get a text message or an email that says, "Hey, Matt, tune into the event." I tap the link and I watch it, just like the Super Bowl, or just like any other online, the presidential primaries, those kind of things. I watch them. I tune in because it's live,
Hmm.
and I can participate. Not only that, but when the auctioneer steps up to do the live auction and I see the trip that I really want, or I want to participate in a fund in need, I can just press a button. Again, we make it very, very simple. You just press a button and boom, your name shows up. And it's mind blowing because your name shows up on a big screen because you gave, and it went over the internet,
Hmm.
and your name is up on the screen, and you've helped raise 500, 800, $1,000 for this charity. And you're, 5 or 6 states away,
Hmm.
maybe even a couple of time zones, and you're participating. And it's, again, you've already retained your AV company. I've talked to, I've probably hundreds of AV people in the last 3 years, and I barely need to finish a sentence before they say, yep, we know exactly what we need to do. Just make sure we have a laptop and we're fine.
Right.
Because this is easy for them. Just like it's easy for them to set up a camera, set up the big projection screens, this is a no-brainer for them. And so therefore, it's a no-brainer for the nonprofit.
Right. And it's lovely because it's two-way interaction. Like you said, to see the big name on the screen and you can participate and have the opportunity to be a part of the event and not just a person who's sitting back and watching at home, like you said, on a game or, a primary election or something of that nature. So I think that's the part I enjoy the most. You're still kind of cultivating some donor relationships a little bit because you can call that out and say, hey, so and so, thanks for your gift and your support. So it's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Well, I would say too, when we talk about crazy simple, that is the most fundamental. In fact, I did an event last year for my son's school, and what I just took a web camera. I turned on my laptop about 3 hours before the event. I turned on my web camera and I just hit start broadcasting from that web page that I went to, and it started broadcasting. And I sent a message to everybody in our constituency that said, hey, tune in now to our website, bid in the silent auction, and watch us set up this great event for you. They were doing a tech rehearsal for the band. They were dressing tables. They were setting up the bar. They were hanging some lights. They were organizing the auction tables. So you could get a behind the scenes view live of setting up for the event that you were going to go to in 2 or 3 hours. And so it was just my laptop with a web camera. I mean, it really, it can be that simple, but even more, more future-proofing your fundraising, because we have, you know, these generations coming up, millennials, Generation Z, and they are driven by social content.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people will give through social campaigns, and those social campaigns are largely video based. I mean, when I'm on Instagram or Facebook, I'm not looking at, or YouTube, I'm not looking at a picture anymore. I'm looking at a video.
Right.
I'm watching somebody, you know, tell me how, you know, tell dad jokes, or, you know, tell me how to buy blinker fluid, you know, how they got their daughter to buy blinker fluid at the local gas station. And it's funny, and it's, you know, it's cute. That's the kind of stuff that's motivating and moving people. So when you do these little in real life videos, you can broadcast them to your constituents and you can engage them. Again, we talked about donor engagement.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new kind of engagement that nonprofits need to be aware of for the future, because this is how, you know, millennials and Generation Z are seeing nonprofit philanthropy. So if, you know, there's a big crisis out west, or a tornado ravages somewhere down south, and a celebrity goes on TikTok or a celebrity goes on Instagram and says, hey, I'm down here, I can't believe how bad this is, I just started a GoFundMe page. Our younger generations are just captivated by that, and they're giving their dollars to those organizations. And so using the, you know, live broadcasting tools and features that are available to you as a nonprofit are going to be really, really important for the next generations of givers that are out there, or else because now you're competing against all of those online campaigns that are national, global, and so on. So you need to really, you know, get up to that level as well. And it is, like I said, it is very, very easy to do. You know, these apps make it very simple. So anyway, I just like to throw that out there when I talk about video streaming and hybrid type fundraising.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception that the younger generation doesn't have dollars to give, and I think that's completely inaccurate. They just might be giving a different level of dollars, but they're kind of forcing nonprofits to really engage in storytelling, which is something every nonprofit has been doing since existence, but now they're just doing it in a different way, and a way that's engaging a whole different market. And it's not just the younger generation, you know, just like every bit of social media, every age is on TikTok now, and every age is on, you know, Instagram and watching all the videos. And so I also think people need to remember too, even in that space, when you're telling your story, you're still even telling your current audience. They're just consuming it in a different way, which is exciting. So it's got broad reach and appeal for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So, you know, if a nonprofit is planning out their calendar year of events for this year or next year, do you have any advice on things that they should consider before deciding what type of event is good for them? Should they be doing hybrid? Should they be doing fully virtual, a mix of both? You know, what is your advice on how they pick and choose what they should go after?
Yeah, it's a great question. So today, you know, we don't have the same concerns we had several years ago. And so when we think about, you know, virtual events, they are very successful, but the vast majority are in person. So the time to do a virtual event would be if, for instance, you are a nonprofit that has a national reach. So you're a smaller nonprofit, but you have different, you know, chapters around the country, and you want to reach out to them at the same time. So you don't have a centralized location. Maybe you're spanning multiple time zones. That would be a great use for a virtual event on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon, or you know, to do a 1 or 2 hour real time broadcast from the location where you really call home, but again, with all of your constituents spread out all over the country. Summertime is a good time for virtual events because everybody's on vacation, and if you're not doing a golf outing, maybe you couldn't get a weekend. They're all booked up, and you're looking for an opportunity to do a fundraiser at a low cost. Virtual is a great way to go, and they can be. Now, again, we don't want to apply the same rules or the same parameters that we would apply to an in-person event. The timelines are different. The silent auction items that you auction off might be less instead of more. In fact, if you do, a lot of schools will do spring fundraisers, so March, April, and if they have maybe 150 to 200 items on the higher end, maybe they only sell 150, so they have these extra items. You can do a virtual second chance auction. And so again, you've already received the auction items. You can do an online virtual auction and move the rest of those items through that. And you can also do end of the school year fundraising to help the school, have a big painting initiative to paint all the rooms, maybe recarpet the rooms over the summer break. So, that would be a great use for virtual. But I do think, it's very, very important to say that the traditions are still there. I mean, to do a in-person gala is really, really important. I'm not trying to be so far ahead of the curve that it's, you become a little bit irrelevant, that,
Right.
you want to make sure to maintain what works. And, when you're still raising money, you're still seeing a high turnout at events like we are. It's still a good idea, but we're just expanding. You're doing an in-person event, but you're creating that third display. You've got the one on the right, the one on the left on the of the stage, and then you have the one online. That's expanding beyond the ballroom, that virtual venue that people can participate from wherever they are. And again, that way your constituents, no matter where they move to or what they're doing that night, they can participate. So I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's different for everyone, I'm sure, given their audience and capacity even. Um,
Sure.
and I'm gonna kind of finish here with one just random question is I'd love to see or hear about what was the most interesting or unique event or auction item that you have seen working in this industry and working in this business that has come through, particularly during COVID when everyone started getting really creative with their efforts?
So yeah, there's a handful of them. One, I will say, if you're a school, classroom projects are priceless because they're, you have a smaller audience, maybe the 20 or 30
Mhm.
parents that can buy this item. Always, always, always do a classroom project, especially the elementary, because it doesn't matter what it looks like. Parents go crazy for it, and you have to buy it because you'll never get another chance at buying it. So those, I always recommend those. But during the pandemic, the one thing I saw that was absolutely awesome was you get a lot of money from ticket sales. So all of a sudden you can't go to an event anymore, so you don't sell tickets. But one organization said, whoa, what we can do is we can sell meals. So they created a ticket page, and instead of selling a $150 ticket to the event, they actually sold a meal with a choice of wine or beverage, and then they delivered them all individually in the hour and a half before the virtual event.
Mhm.
So there was no contact, it was all social distanced, and they were able to deliver these box lunches and box meals to these families. It was everybody was coming up with clever and creative things, and I thought that was just wow, like that really makes a lot of sense.
Mhm. Yeah, we can all still share a meal together, at the same time for the same purpose. Yeah, that sense
Yeah,
of community. That's awesome.
yeah.
All right. Well, any last thoughts or ideas or comments that you want to share with, the nonprofit friends that are watching?
um no, I think I think that's good. I'm looking forward to the types of fundraising that people do. You don't have to invent something new. You can just make what you have just a little bit better. With
Yeah.
some of the technology that's available with social media, Instagram, TikTok. The new medias that are out there. I just think you can do more now than you used to be able to do, and it doesn't cost
Mm.
that much more money. So I'm excited to see what people do.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I'll be watching and sharing all those great ideas as I see them as well. And Matt, we'll put information about ClickBid attached to this video if people want to learn more about the services and the great company that you have started. And we look forward to talking again. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much.